Italy. The dream trip. The one we talked about for over a year. The one I thought would save us. I imagined old streets, soft music in the background, wine at sunset, and us, walking hand in hand like something out of a movie. But instead, it was day 4. And we were screaming in a back alley behind a bakery. He was red in the face. I was holding back tears. And the worst part, we weren't even alone. Because, surprise, his 2 best friends decided to come along. You know, to keep things fun. Translation. Boys' trip with a free emotional punching bag. Me. They laughed every time we argued. They called me dramatic behind my back, except not really behind, more like right next to me in a language I could understand. Me. He thought it was funny. He always laughed with them. But that day something changed. It started with something stupid. A wrong turn maybe. I told him we'd passed that corner twice already. He rolled his eyes and said, "Why don't you just relax for once?" Then he said it loud, so his friends could hear. "This is why I don't take you anywhere." Froze. Right there in the middle of that cobblestone street, surrounded by old buildings and the smell of coffee, I felt my heart sink. I turned away, said quietly, "I need 5 minutes." But instead of giving me space, he turned to his friends, smirked and said, "Let's see how she gets back." And they all laughed, got into the car, and drove away. No hesitation, no second glance. They left me, in a country I didn't know, with no phone, no money, no ID, nothing. I stood there stunned. First I thought it was a joke. Maybe they were circling around the block. Maybe he'd come back in a few minutes. Waited. 5 minutes. 15. Nothing. People walked past me like I wasn't even there. A man on a bicycle nearly ran into me. Someone's dog barked. Life moved on like I didn't just get abandoned on the other side of the world. And in that moment, right there in the middle of nowhere, Italy, something inside me broke. Or maybe it finally woke up. For the first time in years, I stopped thinking, what would he want me to do? And started thinking, what do I do for me? That moment, it was terrifying, but somehow also freeing. Because he thought I'd cry. He thought I'd beg for him to come back. But he didn't know me. Not really. Not anymore. I didn't move for a long time. My feet were frozen on that cracked cobblestone. My heart was racing, but everything around me felt still, like the world had stopped to watch me figure out what to do next. But the truth is, the world doesn't stop. Not even for heartbreak. Not even when you're stranded, alone, in a town you can't even pronounce. A Vespa zoomed past me, nearly clipping my elbow. A little boy dropped his gelato on the ground and started crying. An old man sitting outside a cafe looked up at me for half a second, then went back to his crossword. I wanted to scream. Does anyone see me? But I couldn't even speak. I didn't know if I wanted to be seen, or disappear. That's when the panic crept in. I patted my pockets. Empty. Checked my tote bag. Just the book, the croissant, and a tiny travel notebook with a broken pen. My phone. Still in the glove box of that rental car. With him. I was invisible. No identity. No connection to anything or anyone. Just a name and a body standing on a foreign street corner. And yet, somehow, that emptiness felt like the start of something. A walk. No destination. No plan. Just one foot in front of the other. Past flower stands. Shuttered windows. Street cats that blinked at me like I didn't belong. My throat was dry. I hadn't had water since that awful fight. I ducked into a tiny alley where sunlight barely reached, and found a small stone fountain. Locals were drinking from it. I hesitated, then leaned down. The water was cold. And real. For some reason that sip made me feel like maybe I could keep going. Minutes turned into an hour. Then 2. Eventually I found a bench near an old church and sat down. That's when I heard her voice. Kind. Italian. I didn't understand the words at first. But the tone was unmistakable. Concern. She was a woman in her 60s, wearing a blue apron and holding a small bag of groceries. She pointed at me, then at the croissant I was holding like a crumpled lifeline. I nodded slowly. She said something else and smiled. Then handed me a warm piece of bread. Focaccia, I think. With her own hands. I didn't say a word. I just nodded, holding back tears. She sat beside me like we were old friends and we just sat there. 2 strangers. On a bench. in silence. But it didn't feel empty. It felt like the first time someone had seen me. Not as his wife. Not as the angry girl from earlier. Just me. That small moment. Cracked something open inside me. 'Cause sometimes, you don't need a rescue plan. Or revenge. Or even an apology. Sometimes, all you need is a piece of bread from a stranger. And the decision to take the next step. Even if you don't know where it leads. And in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. Not today. Maybe not ever. That bench by the church became my first safe place. It was me. A half-eaten croissant. And the quiet kindness of a woman whose name I didn't know. When she stood up, she placed her hand gently on my shoulder. No words. Just a look. Warm, steady. Like she was saying, "You'll be okay." And somehow, I believed her. As the sun dipped behind the bell tower, I realized I had nowhere to go. I was tired, hungry, alone. And if I sat there any longer, I knew I'd spiral. So I stood and walked, this time with purpose. I wandered aimlessly, hoping maybe I'd stumble into something. Hostile. Fate. A miracle. That's when I saw it. Flyer. Pinned to a faded green wall. It had words in English. Language exchange tonight. 7 p.m. Free pizza. And blinked. Free pizza. English. I was in. I followed the address. Took a wrong turn, got chased by a pigeon, laughed for the first time in hours. And finally found it. A tiny bookstore, wedged between a gelato shop and a bar with a broken neon sign. Inside, soft jazz. Books stacked like Jenga towers. And people, talking, laughing, eating. Felt warm, alive. Like the opposite of everything I just lived through. I hovered at the door, not sure if I belonged. But then a girl waved at me. Blonde, freckles. Wore a t-shirt that said, "Not lost, just wandering." She looked exactly like someone who had gotten lost before. And survived. "Hey," she said like I was an old friend. "You here for the exchange?" I nodded slowly. Lie or not, I was here now. She pulled me in without hesitation. Introduced herself as Liv. From Norway. Traveling solo. "Everyone's running from something," she whispered with a grin. Or toward something. She handed me a slice of pizza the size of my face. And in that moment, my stomach growled so loudly we both burst out laughing. That laugh cracked something open inside me. Over the next hour I met a guy from Argentina who taught me how to say thank you in 5 languages. A girl from Morocco who'd been on the road for a year, collecting coffee mugs from every city she visited. And a local named Luca, who barely spoke English but smiled like sunshine and gave me his seat without a word. No one asked why I was there. No one judged. They just let me exist. As I was. By the end of the night, I didn't feel like a stranded woman anymore. Felt like a traveler. Like maybe I'd been meant to end up here all along. When Liv found out I had no place to sleep, she didn't flinch. She said, "My hostel has bunk beds. You're crashing with me." End of story. No drama. No questions. Just kindness. That night, lying in a narrow bunk bed that smelled like pine soap and dreams, I stared at the ceiling and thought, maybe this isn't the end of my story. Maybe this is the beginning. And for the first time in a long, long time, felt hope. Not the loud movie scene kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that whispers, "You're going to be okay. Just keep going." I woke up to the sound of seagulls and sunlight. Not the kind that blinds you, but the kind that feels like a soft hand brushing your face, reminding you, you're still here, still alive, still moving. Liv was already up, scribbling in her travel journal with her earbuds in, legs crossed like some Nordic monk. She looked so peaceful, so certain. Meanwhile, I felt like I had just been born. Naked, confused, free. She looked up, smiled, and said, "Morning, freedom girl." And something in me lit up. That morning, over watery hostel coffee and stale toast, she gave me what she called the beginner's backpacker guide to surviving without a clue. It wasn't fancy. It was real. Things like, always carry tissue, never say no to free food, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask. Later that day, I walked the streets of that little town. My town now, at least for the moment. It didn't even have a name I could pronounce right, so in my head I just called it Freedom. Freedom had crooked buildings, faded shutters, and kids kicking soccer balls down alleys. It had a smell, some mix of sea breeze, garlic, and old stories. And it had heart. On my second morning there, I walked past a cafe tucked between two laundry-strewn balconies. It was tiny, run by an older man with a mustache that looked like it had its own opinions. I stood outside staring at the help wanted sign on the door. Had no resume, no Italian, no experience, but I had nothing to lose. So I stepped in, nervous, shaky, but standing. I pointed at the sign, then at myself, then smiled the most hopeful, ridiculous smile I've ever smiled. He looked me over, then without a word, handed me an apron. Just like that. Day one was a mess. I broke a cup. Got yelled at in a mix of Italian and exasperated hand gestures. Burned my thumb on the espresso machine. But when I handed a cappuccino to a woman and she smiled, really smiled, like I mattered, felt something shift. Every morning after that I was there, wiping tables, serving coffee, learning the rhythm of the town. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. At night I'd walk back to the hostel, shoes dusty, hair messy, pockets full of spare coins and crumpled napkins with Italian phrases scrawled on them. Sometimes I'd find Liv waiting on the steps. Sometimes she'd be gone, off to another town, another story. That's how travelers move. The clouds. Sometimes they linger, sometimes they just pass through. Eventually I stopped asking when she'd leave, because I realized I wasn't. This town, this tiny, dusty, sun-kissed corner of the world, had become my beginning. And every time I walked those narrow streets, every time I handed someone a coffee and they said, "Grazie." Every time I watched the ocean shimmer just past the rooftops, felt it. Freedom. Not the loud fireworks kind, but the quiet, grounded kind. The kind that comes from knowing. Chose this. And for once, no one else got to decide who I was. Had been 2 weeks. 14 mornings of sun slipping through the same cracked window. 14 nights of walking home with the scent of coffee still clinging to my sleeves. My hands had learned how to steam milk just right. My feet had memorized every uneven stone on the walk from the cafe to the hostel. And my heart was quiet, not fixed, not whole, but no longer screaming. Then one afternoon, right as I was folding napkins in the back room, my phone buzzed, froze, not because it rang, but because it shouldn't have. It was supposed to be gone. Lost, abandoned like everything else I didn't want to carry. Turns out, Liv had found it, tucked in my old tote bag, dead but not broken. She charged it, quietly, left it on my bunk with a sticky note. Up to you. And now, it was awake, glowing, buzzing. I stared at it like it was a ghost. Then I picked it up. 47 messages, 17 missed calls, 5 voicemails, all from him. The first text. Just one word. Hey, can we talk? I didn't mean it. Where are you? Come on, this is ridiculous. And then, please. The voicemails were worse. His voice, sounding tired, sometimes angry, sometimes broken. Like he couldn't quite decide if he missed me or just missed the power of being missed. I stared at the screen, finger hovering over the latest message. I'm in Rome. I'll wait. My heart thudded once, then again. Then went silent. For a split second I imagined it. Taking the train. Showing up. Letting him say whatever it was he thought I needed to hear. Maybe I'd cry. Maybe he would too. Maybe we'd end up back where we were. But then, I looked around. At the faded cafe walls. At the espresso machine that hissed like it had opinions. At the street beyond the window, where a kid was chasing a paper airplane, laughing like the sky belonged to him. And I realized I didn't want to go back. Not because I hated him. Not even because I didn't care anymore. But because I finally cared about me. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I turned off the phone. No reply. No anger. No closure. Just silence. And you know what? Felt good. Because some messages don't need answers. Some chapters don't need epilogues. And some people, no matter how deeply they once lived in your bones, don't deserve a seat in your future. That night I walked through the town like it was mine. Bought myself a gelato. Sat by the sea. And as the waves whispered secrets in a language older than pain, I made a promise to myself. From now on, I don't chase love that runs. I don't explain peace to people who feed on chaos. And I don't water dead things, no matter how beautiful they used to bloom. The next morning, I woke up lighter. Not like everything was perfect. Not like I had all the answers. But something in me had unclenched. The kind of shift that happens quietly. Not with fireworks, but with a single breath. One that doesn't hurt to take anymore. I worked the cafe like usual. Same burnt croissants. Same old man who always asked for extra foam, then complained it was too much. Same giggling couple who only ever ordered one pastry and 2 forks. But I noticed something different. Me. I was smiling without trying. Laughing without apologizing. Moving like I had a place in the world again. And that's when it happened. Around 4 p.m., just as the shadows stretched long across the sidewalk, a street musician set up across the plaza. Young guy. Curly hair. Guitar case full of stickers from places I'd only ever seen on Pinterest. He strummed something familiar. Until. Then, without warning, he played my song. Not mine really, but ours. The one he used to play in the kitchen when we were still in love. The one we danced to barefoot on the apartment floor, right before everything cracked open. My hands froze. Heart jumped. And for one split second, I thought I might crumble. But I didn't. Closed my eyes. Took a breath. I stepped out from behind the counter, pushed open the cafe door, and walked into the square. And I danced. Alone. Shoes off. Arms up. Not for him. Not for the musician. Not for anyone watching. Just for me. First a few people stared. Some smiled. Some looked away. But I didn't stop. Because in that moment, I remembered who I was before the heartbreak. Before the leaving. Before I forgot that I was allowed to take up space. I twirled under the fading sun. Felt the stones warm beneath my feet. Heard someone clapping softly and then, others joined in. And there I was. Dancing in a foreign square, in a town with no name. Feeling more at home than I ever had in the city where I left everything behind. Liv came out of nowhere, grinning like a lunatic, and jumped in beside me, spinning like a kid on a sugar high. We danced until the music ended. Until our laughter echoed off the walls. Until people stopped seeing 2 girls dancing, and started seeing freedom in motion. When it was over, I looked up at the sky, blushing with the first tint of dusk, and whispered, I'm still here. Not surviving, not escaping, living, fully, loudly, unapologetically. And in that moment I knew, this wasn't a recovery, it was a rebirth. Started with a joke, dumb one, about coffee foam art and how mine looked like a screaming ghost instead of a heart. He laughed, not the polite kind, but the kind that crinkles your eyes and makes you forget what you were sad about 5 minutes ago. His name was Theo, American. But the kind that had been on the road so long. His accent softened, like it had picked up a little of everywhere he'd been. He ordered black coffee, every time. No milk, no sugar, just strong, bitter honesty. Talked, then laughed, then stayed too long after the cafe closed, leaning against the counter, swapping stories in the language of travelers. Half truth, half wonder, all heart. He never asked about my past. Never pushed, just listened. And one night, over a bottle of cheap wine on the hostel roof, he said, You've got a storm in your eyes, you know that? I didn't know what to say, so I kissed him. Quick. Like a secret I wasn't sure I was allowed to keep. And just like that something began. But here's the thing about 2 people who meet on the road. You never know if you're in a chapter or the end of the book. We spent days wandering the back streets. He'd bring me pastries wrapped in brown paper, still warm. I'd teach him how to say ridiculous phrases in broken Italian. We took Polaroids in front of fountains. Told strangers we were married just to get free wine. Shared earbuds on the beach while the waves kissed our feet and time melted into moonlight. And for a while, felt like more than temporary. Felt like magic. But one night I found him packing. Not in a rush. Not with guilt. Just finishing something. Berlin, he said. As if that explained everything. And maybe it did. 'Cause people like us, we don't belong to places. We belong to moments. We kissed one last time under a street lamp, with the smell of roasted chestnuts in the air, and the town asleep beneath us. He whispered, Don't stop dancing. Smiled. Don't stop leaving, I replied. And that was that. No promises. No I'll find you. No forever. Just gratitude. Because not every love is meant to last. Some are meant to teach. To open. To remind you that even broken things can feel beautiful, even if only for a little while. That night I didn't cry. I watched the bus pull away, and went back to the cafe, with music in my ears, and freedom in my chest, because this time, love didn't save me, I saved myself. After Theo left, the world didn't stop, but it slowed down, just enough for me to notice the little things again. Like how the sunlight hit the cafe floor around 3 p.m., spilling golden across the tiles like it had nowhere else to be. Like how Liv started humming while she stocked the fridge. Always off-key, always a different song, always a comfort. And how I had started to belong. Not in the dramatic way. Not the plant roots by furniture, settle down kind of belonging, but the quiet kind. The kind that makes you exhale when you didn't know you were holding your breath. I started saying buongiorno like I meant it. Started learning names. Started knowing which regular liked their cappuccino with extra cinnamon, and which one secretly slipped sugar packets into their purse. One morning as I opened the cafe early, I looked out at the sleepy square, empty except for pigeons and a sleepy dog chasing shadows, and I whispered to myself, I think I'm home, not because I planned it, not because it made sense, but because here, in this tiny town, with cracked sidewalks and too many church bells, felt like me, not someone's ex, not someone running, not someone broken, just me. I called my mom that night, first time in months. She cried. We didn't fix everything, but we said I love you like we meant it, and that was enough for now. I sent postcards, started journaling again, got a tiny sun tattoo on my wrist, something just for me. And every Sunday, I'd sit by the sea with a coffee and a book I never finished, because the waves were always louder than the words. And every so often, think of him, the first him, the one who cracked me open, not with hate, not with regret, just with distance. And for the first time, I didn't feel pain, felt grateful, because if he hadn't broken me, I wouldn't have run. If I hadn't run, I wouldn't have landed. And if I hadn't landed, I would have never known that home isn't a place. It's not a city, person, plan. It's a feeling. And this time, I built it inside me. So wherever I go next, with or without someone beside me, I'll carry it with me. Because this isn't the end of my story. It's just the first chapter, where I'm the one holding the pen. And I'm not afraid of blank pages anymore.